Good morning, Transplant Helper community. My name is Jim Burrow, and I just want to pause for just a moment today and answer a couple of different viewers' questions. They actually come from the same person, and they're actually both related to recovery. So I thought it'd be good just to sit down and answer both of them pretty much at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and read both questions to you, and then I'll answer them as best I can, at least. And by the way, I appreciate the question. If you've ever got any question whatsoever related to transplant, or transplant in this case recovery, I'd love to do my best to answer that. Generally speaking, if you ask a question, I'll reply back to you via message or phone call, or however it is you ask the question. That's how I'll reply back. And then in many cases, I'll sit down and make a video like this as well, so to better explain it and perhaps to help someone else. But anyway, those questions are always welcome. And so here we go. Here's the very first question. It says, Jim, what is the one thing about transplant you wish you had known going into it? Well, that's a tough question. There are so many things about transplant going into the process that I actually did not know at all, had no idea about. And a lot of the reason why I've been doing this channel like I have for a little bit over 2 years, done over 550 videos, really came down to the fact that I didn't want anybody to go without having their questions answered like I did back in the day. Basically, when I got started in the process 7.5 years ago, there were no answers to these questions, at least that I knew about. Obviously, there were people who had gone through that, who had experienced that, who could have answered those face to face. But as far as resources like this on YouTube, on Google searches, whatever, there just weren't any. So if I had to narrow it down a little bit, basically the one thing I wish I had known going in probably comes down to the fact that we all recover so differently. Even the handful of patients that I had been lucky enough or blessed enough to have met with prior to transplant that had already experienced it, even those people, I didn't realize. I basically thought that, okay, if you need an organ transplant, whether it's heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, whatever, you're listed for that. You're, evaluated, you're listed, you get the transplant. There's a little recovery period, 2, 3, 4 weeks or a couple of months, and then boom, you're back to normal, you're back to life, and that's the way it is. But I have learned the hard way that that's not always the case. Surely that is the case for some people, maybe even many people, maybe most people, but it's not the case for everyone. And so our recovery processes are very, very different. Each of us recovering in a different way, and certainly at a different pace. And I wish I'd known that going in. It probably would not have been nearly as frustrating or discouraging if I'd been able to look around me and say, okay, just because he or she, recovered in this X amount of time, that doesn't mean I'm going to, and it certainly doesn't mean I have to recover in that time. And I would not have held myself to what standards that I did going in if I'd seen people being so different. And so I try to remind myself today when I sit down and I'm kind of helping, counseling, mentoring people, especially in the face-to-face work that I get to do, I try to be sure to tell them, okay, here is my experience, but that's exactly what it is. It was my experience. It may not be yours. These may be generalizations. These may be averages as far as, numbers and such of recovery times, but they're not going to be standards as far as you can say this is how long it takes. And so everybody's going to be different. And again, I wish I had known that going in. It would have helped me a lot as far as being able to kind of process everything and knowing that no matter where I am, that doesn't mean that's where I'm going to be. And so I can be different. And because we're all different as people, we're all different the way that we go into transplant, we're going to be different the way that we come out of it as well. So that's the first question here answered. What is the one thing about transplants you wish you'd known going in? That's pretty much it. Okay, second question, and related to it because of the way I answered the first one, having to do with recovery. The second question is, how can you keep a positive attitude when your recovery is not going as planned? Again, kind of related to the first. I still tell the story, and I remember very clearly. I was 3 weeks out of transplant, so however long that is, 21 days roughly out of transplant. I was going in for my twice a week clinic visits that I do, sitting down with my cardiologist, my transplant cardiologist and all. And I remember sitting down to him and complaining after that third week that I didn't feel good, that I wasn't up to 100% yet. I wasn't where I wanted to be, I wasn't where I expected to be, and I was extremely frustrated with that. And I remember him looking me straight in the eye, and he said, "Mr. Merle," at that point that's what he called me. He calls me Jim now, but he said, "Mr. Merle," he said, "how long were you sick? How long was it? How old were you when you got this transplant?" And I thought, he knows the answer. Why is he asking? I said, well, 38 years old at the time. I was 38 years old. He said, "So you're telling me that you were sick with congestive heart failure, basically a congenital heart defect," which was my case, "for 38 years. And now you're sitting in my office after only 3 weeks and you're complaining about anything and you're frustrated. Why are you even complaining? How can you expect," he asked me, "how can you expect to go 38 years being sick and then bounce back in 3 weeks? Your body has been through the most difficult, challenging, nearly impossible surgery of its life in heart transplant. You cannot be mad or frustrated or discouraged in the fact that you've not recovered in 3 weeks from a 38-year condition." And so what I learned to tell myself, and I'm going to share this with you now, is that when you are measuring your recovery, and this is all about recovery, basically both questions, but when you're measuring your recovery and you're trying to determine where you are and where you want to be at a certain period of time, say, I'm making up a number, for example, say after 6 weeks I wanted to be 60% recovered. When you're trying to set those goals, if after 6 weeks, me wanting to be 60% recovered, if I discovered after 6 weeks I was only 40% recovered, instead of getting frustrated with that, what I needed to do is to realize, even if I was only 40%, and not to 60, but 40%, I still needed to give 100% effort of whatever I had. So if I'm 40% recovered, I need to give 100% effort into being 40% recovered. If I'm 60% recovered, I need to give 100% effort into being 60% recovered. If I'm 75% recovered, I need to be giving 100% effort into being 75% recovered. Now that may not, I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but what I'm saying is, no matter where you are, 40%, 60%, 70%, 75%, you have to give 100% of your efforts into improving and into recovering, no matter where that is. So if you wake up out of surgery, post-transplant, say like I was 4 days out of transplant, and I only felt like I had just a little bit of me, recovered. I felt like, I wasn't making progress. I felt like, I'll be honest with you, I felt like I had made a mistake, that I shouldn't have even gone through the transplant because I didn't feel good. Instead of being frustrated with that, I said, I should have told myself then, I've learned to say it since, as I just expressed, I should have said at that 4-day mark, "Jim, you've still got to give it your all. You still got to give it 100%. You still got to keep pushing with everything you have to the extent that you have it. Not push beyond what you have, but push to the top percentage, the 100% mark of what you do have, and be thankful for that." Does that make any sense? I hope that it does, and I hope that that can help you to keep the right mindset, the right attitude, and help you to be encouraged wherever you are. And understand, as the first question and the second go, everyone recovers differently. Everyone recovers at their own pace, but everyone has to fight to recover. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jim Merle. They call me the Transplant Helper. And by the way, let me throw in right here, if you've not already been watching my brand new program on my new channel, The Passage, which is kind of a biblical motivational type program, I hope you'll check that out. I'll be sure at the end of this video, there'll be a couple of circles that pop up. One of them will help you to subscribe to this channel. The other will take you over to that channel, and you can check it out and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it. By the way, again, if you got any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay stronger, friends.